For years, the story for silver has been one HH dominant narrative from the central bankers, HH strong dollar, and it kept a pretty firm lit HH that all changed. Today, we're going to dive into HH. They absolutely shattered it, igniting what a lot HH, and this quote, this really gets to the HH. The prevailing belief was that central banks could HH back and just let the economy stand on its own, to HH, not in words, of course, but in actions, that this HH it's built right now seems to require permanent HH. That is the fundamental catalyst. We're going HH changed everything for precious metals. Okay, HH point. The date was December 10th, 2025. The HH so significant the market couldn't help but HH serious weakness. The move really suggested that HH surface was way more serious than anyone was HH. It was a massive pivot that basically rewrote the HH. Now, what's truly wild here is the speed. HH, just look at this timeline. On December 1st, HH known as quantitative tightening. Okay, a big HH, but then just 9 days later on December 10th, they HH the year. That got a lot of people by surprise. HH, the announcement of a brand new treasury bill. HH was intense. In less than 2 weeks, we went from a HH easing, that rapid-fire reversal scream, to HH about something big on the horizon. So, what HH actions that are now acting like monetary rocket? HH deconstruct them, because these aren't just minor HH, their previous policy stance, and they are now HH back into the financial system. First up, HH point rate cut. This brought the target federal HH a single rate cut. That's just a standard tool in HH third cut of the year. Well, that sent a really HH that the Fed's main focus had dramatically shifted. HH prevent a severe economic downturn. But this HH single month, that's the amount of new money HH purchased short-term government debt. To give you HH $1 trillion a year in new balance sheet. HH sprayed directly into the financial system, and it HH were supposedly tightening. A move this big is HH of the dollar, and of course the price of hard HH communication game that is always being played. HH was a technical intervention. They were really HH of quantitative easing. But here's the thing, HH about the function. When the central bank prints HH sheet expansion, you can call it K5, you can call HH you want. The result is exactly the same. More HH. Here is the combination of these two policies. HH falling, which makes holding a currency less, and HH same time as a massive expansion of the currency. HH is a direct two-pronged attack on the purchasing HH and the market ease reaction. It was immediate. HH index, the DXY, which measures the dollar against HH almost instantly. At the same time, real yields, HH you subtract inflation, started trending sharply. HH is that if you were holding government bonds, HH have a weaker currency and negative real returns. HH to flee and seek refuge in assets that can't HH. This were only a monetary story, it would be HH that monetary rocket fuel we just talked about. HH been burning for years. A deep structural scarcity. HH other half of the equation, and it's what makes HH for 5 consecutive years, for half a decade. HH then miners have been able to pull out of the HH little deficit either. In 2025 alone, the HH a one-time thing or some temporary supply chain. HH fundamental supply and demand picture is deeply HH an incredible amount of tension in the market. HH long before the Fed ever made its pivot. So why HH? This chart tells you everything you need to know. HH this is a massive contrast to gold, where most of it, unlike investment demand, which can change on whim, HH it gets used up and it's gone. This is the bedrock situation, so incredibly compelling. And what HH? We're not talking about trivial things. We are HH technology. Solar panels, electric vehicles, HH connect everything. All of it requires silver. In these critical applications, the price of silver is no viable substitute. That is what we mean by HH matter the price. So, let's put the two pieces. HH market strained by years and years of deficits, and HH pours gasoline all over it. This is the moment reacted when these two powerful forces HH subtle. It was a signal that the entire character HH long era of suppression was officially over. HH a decade plus old high, it's often just the HH for call options. which are basically bets of the HH classic sign of what's called a short squeeze. HH for years, they have been forced to buy it back at HH. This can create a vicious feedback loop that HH. What is really fascinating here is the complete HH. The old script, the one we heard for years, was HH bad for silver. Well, that script has been torn up. Pivot is a loud and clear admission of systemic weakness, which weakens the dollar, transforming silver from just essential monetary hedge, a lifeboat in a currency. HH important signal in the immediate aftermath of the HH jumped on the news. It got that classic sugar high. HH sophisticated investors, they saw that for what it HH assets was just getting started. They understand when the consequences of printing 40 billion new HH economy. So where does all of this lead? This HH of this past December have kicked off what really HH let us try and project what the path forward could. HH escape velocity. It is a pretty logical sequence of HH pumping money into the system and cutting rates to HH. Very actions are the ingredients for a new and HH classic corner they have painted themselves into. HH inflation to avoid a painful recession. Now, HH it's pretty compelling. With gold at 4,237 and HH sitting at about 67 tune. That means it takes HH historically, that ratio is really high. The bull markets for metals, we've seen it drop to 30 HH to simply correct towards a more normal breakout HH well into the triple digits. This isn't some wild HH how these two metals behave. And I really want to HH the absolute foundation of this entire situation. HH paper contracts being traded back and forth on an HH tangible shortage of the physical metal. The fact HH been draining for 5 straight years provides HH the real monetary demand truly arrives. It's HH ultimately. It all comes down to this. For years, HH told that they were crazy, that they were fighting HH 2025. The Federal Reserve itself has validated HH that the only tool they have left is the printing. HH search for real value for something that can't be HH with the ultimate question, doesn't it? We've laid HH on one side, you have an unprecedented wave of new HH has been forced to reverse course and flood HH. You have a physical market that has been starved. HH. Unstoppable forces finally collide head-on. What HH to find out? Thank you for watching. Like and HH Visigoths. Have a great day and keep stacking.